My name is Guy Richards. I'm part of the business development group at Microsoft. I've been here for about 3 years now, working on ID Xbox, so working with developers, publishers based in the European region, helping them to find success on all of the gaming platforms that Microsoft has. It's a very exciting time to be working on gaming at Microsoft. Within the last 18 months, Phil Spencer got promoted to report to Satya. So Phil Spencer, he's the most senior person at Microsoft in relation to gaming, and he got promoted to the senior leadership team of our CEO. It's the first time we've ever had somebody responsible for gaming elevated to such level within Microsoft. And along with that promotion that Phil got, Microsoft's strategy within gaming has changed quite a lot as well. So we've gone from a strategy within gaming, which 2-3 years ago was focused purely kind of on how to compete with PlayStation and Nintendo within the console market, to how can we compete in a gaming world which is changing with stuff like cloud coming in. How can we reach a much wider set of gamers on the planet? So thinking much more about kind of like games as the service side of gaming, the cloud side of gaming, and how that changes our strategy going forwards. So I just wanted to give you kind of a quick overview of some of the things that we work on in our role and with developers on the ID Xbox program. Getting games onto Xbox One and the Windows 10 store continues to be a key part of what we do. We've got Xbox Game Pass, which is our content subscription service, which is currently available on Xbox One. Titles that come through the ID Xbox program, through publishers that we work with, can be considered for that program and can be put into the service as well. We've got Project X Cloud, which is our cloud game streaming solution. We're continuing to talk more about that as we continue to get closer to rolling that out over the next year or so. We have Mixer, which is our live streaming solution. So think of that as kind of like Twitch, stuff like that. It's a company which we acquired about 2 years ago. It used to be called Beam. Rebranded it to Mixer. We've integrated that into the Xbox One and Windows 10 platforms, as well as making it available on a range of mobile and web devices as well. Then we've got Microsoft Game Stack, which is the booth space we have downstairs in the lobby. That brings together all of our gaming technologies, such as Xbox Live, Azure, PlayFab, Havoc, DirectX, and a bunch more things under one umbrella, enabling us to have one kind of clear conversation with game developers. All of these services are focused around being platform agnostic. They support games which you may see exclusive on other platforms. It's stuff that's going on in the background. And then we have a cool example here which kind of focuses around some of the stuff that we do in terms of inclusivity. So an example here is the adaptive controller, which was something that came out of a game jam at Microsoft and has enabled players around the world to interact with content on our platform, on the PC platform, who maybe wouldn't have been able to do so in the past. So in my role, as I mentioned, I work on ID Xbox. For those of you who don't know what ID Xbox is, it's a program which enables independent developers and publishers to sell their games on Xbox One and Windows 10 platforms. We treat every developer within our ecosystem, every publisher the same. If you come through ID Xbox as an independent developer, you could be a qualified studio of 1 to 2 people, all the way up to an independent studio with 300-400 people plus. We treat everybody the same. So you get exactly the same access to features for Xbox Live, whether that's to include Xbox Live in your console game, whether that's to include Xbox Live off-platform on platforms like mobile, Android, iOS. We recently had Cuphead launch on Nintendo Switch using Xbox Live. You get access to Xbox One X, so you can do full support for 4K HDR gaming. You get 2 free development kits for signing up. You get Unity access. We've got one global submission pipeline, which enables you to publish on the store worldwide. So a ton of great benefits to being part of the program. And if you're a developer in the audience today that hasn't signed up, I definitely recommend that you do so. If you're thinking about launching a game in the next 12, 24 months, something like that, signing up and getting access to the SDK and technical information is something that can really help you start planning earlier on in your process. So this is a look at kind of how ID Xbox has done so far. We've got over 3,000 studios making games, 67 countries with idea Xbox developers based there. We've had a ton of games go into Game Pass, and we have loads more that are still in development. So bearing in mind the program's 5 years old, we're really happy with how the program's done to date. So this is a great time to be a developer. We think everything is awesome. There's a really kind of great virtuous cycle of platforms are becoming more and more open, which enables developers to put their games onto more platforms than ever before. The development tools which are available continue to be improved, and if you're comparing publishing on Xbox One versus Xbox 360 and PS3 like 5 years ago, the processes are a lot smoother than they were back then. And obviously this coincided with kind of like the rise of digital distribution, enabling developers to come to those platforms. And also, the rise of new platforms like Nintendo Switch as well. There really are like a ton of options for developers out there. So yeah, we really do think it's a great time to be making games. We like to think that, with all of the platforms that you can target, they all kind of put developers at the center. So there's a ton of opportunities out there. One of the main things to kind of consider, and from our perspective, is that all of your competitors have access to the new platforms, digital distribution, all of the new tools as well. So, it's becoming harder and harder to find an edge. Gone are the days of where maybe you had like an in with a first-party contact or somebody, a publisher, that could kind of like help you get an advantage and get you a leg up. So really, you do need to think about how your game can stand out, whether that's something that you're doing from a game design, from a technical perspective, or whether it's ways that you need to differentiate yourself through your marketing and your PR plan. The industry is changing at an unprecedented pace. I think if you just kind of look at the slide here, just tried to call out some of kind of like the interesting things that we've seen over the past few years that have impacted how the games have been sold or made. So things like DayZ is there to kind of talk about the rise of early access gaming from around 2015. We have a program called Game Preview on Xbox, which enables you to sell your game whilst it's still in development. Completely changed kind of like the fundamentals of how some games were sold and created with the community. The introduction of live streaming, so Mixer, Twitch, platforms like that, what that has meant for developers and the community in terms of what community you target to build around your game, the kind of impact that influencers can have on how your game is sold. New technical features such as 4K and HDR and ways that you can make your game stand out versus the competition. Cross-platform play, Minecraft, seeing Nintendo Switch and Xbox players playing together. Game Pass in terms of like a new business model and how that impacts the way that games are discovered, sold, and monetized. And then in the future, how the introduction of cloud is going to change. So with us, xCloud, obviously, GDC, Google announced Stadia. There's a ton of investment being made by multiple companies on that front there. And kind of one of the key things and one of the beauties of being an independent developer is that you're perfectly placed to kind of be easily take advantage and adapt as the change comes through. So whilst all this change is happening, some of the fundamentals don't change. Players still want to have new experiences, not just experiencing the same thing over and over again. They still want great gameplay, and they still want great story. But please don't think you need all three of these at once. There's no precise formula for what makes a successful game. However, we do see through our data that these are some of the three key fundamentals that hold true when we're looking at some of the most successful titles on the platform. Publishing is hard work. So on what we've tried to look at here is kind of some of the key core functions of being a developer and being a publisher. In the kind of example here, we've looked at the example of if you're an independent developer who's self-publishing your game on any platform, and we've kind of like looked at where are the areas where developers are traditionally strong, where are some of the areas where maybe they need a bit of help, and where are the areas where they're weaker and they kind of had to lean on us or external parties for advice or support. So the green stuff on here is the stuff that we definitely feel developers are very comfortable at. The orange stuff is the stuff which, if you could, some developers are great at it depending on their size. Some people have the experience in-house. Other developers need to look at outsourcing some of this stuff in order to make sure that, they've got the bandwidth to focus on the areas that they need to. The stuff in the blue is the stuff that we're going to focus on over the next couple of slides. Talking about some of the examples and the stuff that we've learned from working with our publishers, and And we talk about them in a way that could hopefully be applied to any platform that you're targeting. But obviously, the examples in this presentation focus on within the Microsoft gaming ecosystem. At the beginning of the process, you may want to be thinking about any early partnerships for your game. Obviously, having an external partner come on board early on, whether that's an external publisher, whether it's a partnership for a platform, can really help you. Can really help you kind of like set the trajectory for your development, unlock additional funding for your game earlier on, obviously like potentially de-risk the product, or even enabling you to kind of add more features and content to the game that maybe you might not be able to otherwise. At Xbox, Microsoft, there's like 3 kind of areas that we support games, and we're always happy to look at games very early on in the process. We've got games which are published by Xbox Game Studios. So think of these as kind of like the term first-party games. These are the games which, stuff like Halo, Gears of War, stuff like that. But obviously they do kind of scale in terms of the types of projects they support. We have things like, Ori and the Blind Forest, Recore. So there's a really wide range of games that come through that channel. We have games that go into Xbox Game Pass. This can, the discussion around games going into Xbox Game Pass and the negotiation around that can happen after a game's launch. It can happen before a game's launch, quite early in your development process as well. And then we have games that are supported in other ways through ID Xbox, such as marketing commitments and things like that. Some key things to remember is that we're a global team at Microsoft, so we have no regional restrictions in terms of like who you speak with. Yes, like there's people like myself based here in Europe, but we also have colleagues around the world. So if you're at an event in the US and you bump into someone from the team there, then you can speak to them as well. Obviously, you can be at events where you find a lot of people who work at Microsoft but may not be part of the Xbox team. It's always great to reach out and speak to them. However, we do advise that you try and get put in touch with someone from the Xbox team, because if it is kind of game funding and partnerships that you're looking for, then somebody from the Xbox team is going to be best placed to do that. So at the beginning of kind of your publishing process, you need to make sure that you have a marketing plan. In the next couple of slides, we'll talk about some of the marketing opportunities that are available and the different ways that we kind of like see them within our ecosystem. But one of kind of the key things that always comes up when we're working with independent developers is making sure that they have a plan and not doing stuff kind of retrospectively, reactively at the last minute. Some of the things you want to think about is, do you need a short launch campaign, a long campaign? How long can you sustain it? What is your bandwidth? Obviously, you don't want to announce your game too early if you're a small studio and you're not going to have enough content to kind of like keep up that awareness as you get closer to launch, or trying to fill that really long gap. One of the kind of things that we always see is kind of making sure that you speak to platform holders in advance. We've kind of lost count of the amount of times we'll have a developer announce their game or put a video up on their own YouTube channel, then come to us asking us if we could amplify and support that on our channels as well. One of the challenges we have there is we have to go to our PR and our marketing teams or the stakeholders that own like the Xbox YouTube channel and say, oh, by the way, can you like post and announce this game that was already announced a week ago? Like it's very hard for us to do that. If you come to us early, like 2-3 weeks in advance, even a week in advance, we can have a conversation around it, and we can line up our announcement to line up with your announcement, and then that amplifies the opportunity in a much bigger way. So as an independent developer, publisher, you're responsible for your own promotion and marketing activities. Platforms can work with you to help amplify your plan. But you remain in control of the plan, and you remain in control of what you want to do for your game on the marketing side. Each platform is different. However, here's some examples within our ecosystem of the ways that we can support and amplify your game or your announcements. So one of these is through ID Xbox. So ID Xbox actually has their own channels which we own. These are kind of the channels which are kind of easiest for us to amplify titles on, because obviously we own them. Whilst they don't have the same reach as the Xbox-owned Twitter channels, social media, online channels, they do have a very targeted kind of niche audience within the Xbox gaming ecosystem. So we're followed a lot by core fans that love ID Xbox games, core kind of media and influencers that love ID Xbox games as well. So this is definitely some kind of great opportunities that we suggest you consider. We often reach out as games launch to kind of invite them onto our Mixer channel, which we do weekly, doing blog posts talking about announcing the release date, announcing the game's coming to Xbox, coinciding that with YouTube video coverage on Twitter as well. That's stuff that we can definitely try to do for as many titles as possible on our platform. And then similarly, kind of like same kind of channels, but obviously for the kind of the wider Xbox audience, we've got the Xbox Zone channels. So again, Xbox Wire, Xbox.com, CRM, and our social media websites as well. One of the keys of these is trying to line up your announcements with a specific thing that's happening within your PR plan. So having like a call to action or something that you're trying to drive consumers to. We see kind of like much higher engagement if you're announcing your release date and there's a pre-order as well, or there's a beta, or there's something that players to try. If you're just kind of like announcing, hey, the game's going to come out on this date, but there's nothing that the people reading the blog post can then kind of like be called to do in terms of like whether they're downloading or pre-ordering, then we're going to see less engagement. So that's definitely one of the recommendations that we have. So we have Mixer. So Mixer is a completely platform-inclusive live streaming service. Does some cool things like 4-person co-op streaming. The latency is super, super low, so it allows for kind of interactivity between the influencer who's streaming and the community who's watching. We have Mixer Rewards, which this is something that Forza Horizon does. So, by watching Forza Horizon, you actually unlock rewards and points within the game for doing so. One of the things that we recommend that all developers do is to set up your own official channel. Through the ID Xbox team, we can put you in touch with the right people at Mixer to make sure you get your channel officially verified. What that enables you to do is, when you start streaming, since your official channel through Mixer, we like to support developers as they're live streaming their game, either post-release or pre-release. The official channels get a chance to go into the promoted slots on Mixer. We don't ask you to stream exclusively through Mixer. You can stream to Twitch, Caffeine, other live streaming solutions, and dual stream to Mixer at the same time. If you need help doing that, the Mixer team can kind of help set you up with the right software to do that. So, if live streaming is something that you think is going to be important to the marketing plan for your game, then there's definitely ways that you can add Mixer in without having to do anything, which kind of is specifically unique to Mixer. You can just be part of your overall plan as well. Official clubs. So this is something which every game has on Xbox One, and other platforms have similar things as well. But these are kind of the platform integrated tools that enable you to communicate directly with the community of your game on the platform. The way that official clubs work on Xbox One is you as the developer publisher set up the official club. Everyone who downloads or purchases your game opts in to follow your club on Xbox Live. This is super powerful because it gives you a way to communicate directly with your audience on the platform. It's something which on previous platforms has never been possible. We recommend developers treat this like a Twitter social media account. So, we have some publishers, developers who actually have more followers on Xbox Live than they do on their social media accounts, but they're using their social media accounts every day, and they're using Xbox Live more sporadically. As they start posting and putting more content on their Xbox Live official club, they start to see some of the benefits that you have here. And you can tie this into any of your beats on your marketing plan. One of the cool things you can do is if you unlock a trial or you have a game which goes into Game Pass or one of our free play days, then you see a massive spike in the players which follow you on your official club, because as players download that entitlement for free, they then join the club as well. If 2-3 weeks later you're planning to do a discount for the game, you can then obviously do the discount for us through the store team, but then you can actually message yourself to everyone that follows you on the club. Maybe they just download the trial, and you're increasing your chances of those users picking up and having the awareness that the game's discounted. They then may go in and buy it. So there's a ton of cool stuff that you can do on this, and we definitely recommend checking it out. So launch timing, if there's one thing that we always want developers to take away from our presentations, is to think about launch timing, particularly in terms of the platforms that you're targeting. It's the number one thing that we can attribute to success or failure on the platform. And as I just said, if there's one thing to take away from this talk, I strongly recommend launch timing if you're planning to launch on consoles. So at the beginning of the year, January to April, we tend to find that this is the best time to launch. It's the least crowded, and year on year, we've seen the strongest average sales for digital games. The middle of the year, there's definitely good and bad spots. Some of the bad spots, particularly kind of where we're at the moment, as we get close to E3. just because there's so much noise around what's happening with the big AAA games that are going to be announced at that event. July and August can be good. However, as you sort of get towards August, it can get very, very cramped. And it gets cramped because September to December is kind of the worst time of the year to launch, statistically, if you're a digital-only game. It gets cramped because everyone's trying to avoid September and October in recent years, with titles such as Destiny kind of launching at the beginning of September, which have taken up a lot of players' time share, wallet share. You see kind of like a rush of titles trying to get out at the end of August, which can mean for us in August, it can be a great month, but on kind of like a per title basis, as you split it out, that gets spread a bit more thinly across all the developers. So know your platform, whether it's Xbox or other consoles or PC stores that you're targeting. In the same way that we spoke about some of the features like official clubs that enable you to speak directly with players on the platform, do your research. There's stuff that you can do as a consumer sitting at home to try and understand about how the platform and the store works. One of the examples we're going to give here is kind of, this is a slightly old screenshot, but it's of the Xbox One game store. This is like the landing page you have. When you land on the store, you'll see kind of what titles are promoted. You'll be able to identify that this particular time there were some new games that had launched. There was a promotion that the ID Xbox team was running. Along the bottom here, we have what's called new games, and it's a carousel of titles, all in a row. If you were to watch that over a period of a week or two, you'd see that kind of like as a game comes in, it gets pushed along, and new game comes in, game gets pushed along. So one of the things that you may kind of be able to spot, and this is the advice that we give, so you don't have to spot it yourself. But if you're launching on a Tuesday, which is the day of the week that most of the AAA games launch, and you're launching around the same time as, say, Assassin's Creed, which has got 3 editions. If you launch the wrong side of Assassin's Creed, you're going to get pushed down by 3 copies of Assassin's Creed. Whereas if you launch the day after Assassin's Creed, you're pushing Assassin's Creed down. You may also realize that the new games doesn't update on the weekend. So actually, like launching after Assassin's Creed, which launches on Tuesday, but maybe you launch on Friday, means you're going to be in the new releases section over the weekend, which is where the store sees the most traffic. So there's things like that which, obviously, we tell you so you don't have to do it, but there's a ton of stuff that you can learn about how the platform and how the stores work. So yeah, this is kind of here to scroll down the store. We've got sections on here for games which are coming soon. So this is games which are available for pre-order. Any developer is free to set up a pre-order on our platform. It's definitely something we recommend that you do. We recommend that you coincide kind of like your pre-order going live date with announcement of the release date and some of those other marketing opportunities that we spoke about earlier. And the pre-order section works in the same way as games releasing. So kind of a game will pop up to the new releases section as it launches, and the next pre-order will come in. So again, kind of thinking about timing of the year, what other big AAA games are coming out, can have a big impact on how much visibility your title gets on some of those main spaces on the store. Box art is hugely important. An exercise that we ask a lot of our developers to do is, take a print screen of a whole bunch of box arts from the store, Photoshop your box art for the title onto this, put it on your TV, sit 6-7 feet back from the TV on a sofa, and do some research in terms of how well does your box art pop out. Don't just look at it like on your PC monitor like this, where you can see it really, really close. Kind of try and replicate a similar situation that users will have at home. Box art can be updated over time. Fortnite's really good at doing this. Every time there's like a new season or there's kind of like a new theme of content coming in their game, they update their box art. It gives it kind of like a really fresh feel. If you've got a game which has different editions, then we recommend having different box art for those editions, making them all kind of like stand out from each other. I think this is probably like a good example of that. And then the WWE one's probably a bad example. But we see that kind of, an example like this would have like a much stronger attached to the Ultimate Edition than others. So this is an example of a really good box art. It's one that we've used in our presentations for a lot, even though it's slightly outdated now. It's got dinosaurs in it, which looks really interesting. You get to ride dinosaurs, so that's like super cool. You're in a jungle, which is great because it's really kind of at the moment like clearly portraying what the game is. You get to shoot stuff. There's more dinosaurs in the background. Maybe it's a multiplayer game. Maybe those dinosaurs want to kill me. Maybe I get to shoot them. That's quite cool. There's a sci-fi tower thing in the background, which is pretty interesting. Don't know why yet. And then obviously you've got like a nice, clear, like bright game logo at the front. We've had great feedback from this box art on the store. And yeah, it just kind of like highlights a lot of the stuff that we think about when we're looking at box art and trying to understand whether one's going to be successful or not. So after your game's launched and it's on the store, one of the things you need to think about is what is your discounting strategy. We have probably kind of like 4 main kind of discounting strategies that you can take advantage of within the Xbox ecosystem. So one of those is Deals of Gold, which is discounts exclusively for Gold members that run every Tuesday to Tuesday. There's quite a lead time on that, so we definitely recommend trying to get booked up for sort of like 6-9 months in advance, as opposed to kind of like leaving it at the last minute and us not being able to react. Opportunistic discounts, so this is where you set up and you configure your own discounts within the store. So there's a deals section of the store where that stuff gets highlighted. However, the Deals of Gold section definitely sees the most traffic. We have theme discounts, so this is something which you won't necessarily always know about, but we'll reach out to relevant developers. So this could be, in the example here where we're doing, Game Fest 2018 the best independent games. It might be that we're doing a sale on puzzle games at one point in the year. It might be different themes like that. And then we have tentpole promotions. So this is sort of like the one big promotion that we have per quarter. So, the Easter promotion, summer promotion, Halloween and winter. And kind of like the best way to think about your strategy for discounting strategy for the year, the advice we give is to sort of like look at kind of, the full year period, try and get your big tentpole promotions where you can, and then kind of bridge those with either Deals of Gold, Opportunistic, or the theme discounts as they come available. And kind of putting that together ensures that you're doing everything that you can to resurface your game within the ecosystem after it's already launched. If you just kind of like sit there and wait for us to reach out to you when we have a relevant theme discount, maybe you won't get as many opportunities, your game won't get elevated back into those kind of like rich, high visibility areas within the platform. And I'll do one more slide, then I'll finish. Just wanted to quickly say, like, here's a great example of how you can kind of like stack a bunch of opportunities together. So this is one of the partners we worked with, bringing Prison Architect to the platform. They had a new DLC called the Escape Mode release, which you could buy on the store or within their in-game store. They then created a bundle of that game, which went back into the new releases section of the store, so took advantage of one of the tricks that we have there. They then had an agreement with us to put that game into Games of Gold at the same time, and they discounted the older DLC. So whilst they had a whole bunch of users coming in and playing the base game, those users were incentivized to purchase the DLC for that as well. They saw great results from this, and we combined it with support across Xbox Wire, all of our social media accounts for ID Xbox. They're on some of our Mixer-produced shows called Tips and Tricks, and they supported stuff through their official clubs as well. So in summary, we believe there are more opportunities for developers than ever before. Making games is still hard. There's a lot of competition. You really need to find a way to stand out. Make sure that you have a really strong marketing plan. Reach out to platforms in advance. Do your research on platforms. Understand what are the opportunities that are available across all platforms, what ones are specific to a specific platform. And then finally, launch timing is critical. So try and look to kind of launch within the first 4 or 5 months of the year for consoles if you can. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.